Part 67. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 665. Boom. 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 Wang Ling was really cruel to Lu Lao'er, kicking and kicking him so hard that he almost couldn't take care of himself. Moreover, every time he kicked, he would curse wildly. This ferocious appearance was shocking. The man with the beard and the man in the shirt were sweating coldly. They were afraid that Wang Ling would target them again, so they didn't dare to say a word now. Click. After kicking him for a while, Wang Ling stepped on Lu Lao'er's arm again. Wang Ling's current physical strength can even shake a tank, and he even dares to go head-to-head with a wild orc. How can an ordinary person withstand such a kick? There was only a crisp sound of bone cracking heard at the scene. Lu Lao'er's arm had been violently trampled off. Ah! It hurts, it hurts. This time, Lu Lao'er was really in pain and screamed hysterically. Boom. However, Wang Ling still showed no mercy to him, and kicked Lu Lao'er twice, while cursing, "Does it hurt? It just hurts. When you attack Xiaohe, it hurts so much too." Boom. As long as you are cruel, wouldn't you be able to bear it if the same situation happened to you? Rubbish. Boom. He kicked Lu Lao'er several times in succession, almost paralyzing him. He probably had never been beaten like this in his life. Wang Ling was really beating people to death. Brother Ling. But after kicking for a while, Fat Niu suddenly interrupted, "Don't be so impulsive, Xiaohe is still alive." Boom. Wang Ling kicked him down again. "If he's alive, that's because we found him in time, otherwise he would really be dead." Brother Ling, I know, but you have to calm down. If you continue to fight, someone will be killed. This is not our world. There should be many rules and restrictions here. If you really beat someone to death, you will have troublesome. Although Fei Niu was also angry, he was also very aware of the constraints of the peaceful world in the real world. He would rather suppress his anger than to dissuade Wang Ling. Boom. As for Wang Ling, he finally kicked Lu Lao'er aside, and then finally stopped chasing him. Indeed, Wang Ling had already used as much strength as possible when he struck, otherwise Lu Lao'er would have already met the King of Hell in the first blow. However, even if he restrained his strength and kicked for so long, something could easily happen. Why did Wang Ling rather keep teaching Lu Lao'er a lesson instead of killing him? Indeed, he wanted Lu Lao'er's life with almost no effort, but there were too many constraints in the real world, and he didn't want to make a bad name for himself. Now with Fei Niu's dissuasion, Wang Ling barely suppressed his anger and had a chance to go down the slope. Fortunately, among misfortunes, Xiaohe is still alive. Otherwise, Wang Ling might not be able to control his rage. Uncle, I was wrong. Stop fighting. I was wrong. I was really wrong. My life is cheap, not as good as a dog. If you beat me to death, your hands will be dirty. Let me go. I will never dare to do it again. I'll give you whatever you want, as long as you don't continue to beat me. I'm almost beaten to death by you. And when Wang Ling was dissuaded and did not continue to attack, Lu Lao'er almost cried and begged for mercy. Now Lu Lao'er is really scared. From the moment Wang Ling smashed the dog cage, he already knew that he was in trouble this time. The subsequent development was just as he expected. Wang Ling became ruthless. He was kicking and kicking him, and he was really going to fight to death. Although he, Lu Lao'er, was a dog dealer and butcher, he was afraid of his own life and death. Has Wang Ling calmed down now? No, he just didn't want to cause trouble, otherwise Lu Lao'er would probably continue to suffer. However, the other two are still very good and can continue to teach them a lesson. Thinking of this, Wang Ling turned around and looked at the man with the beard and shirt, walking step by step. He really looked like a devil. Big brother. Stop it, We are not the main culprits, it was all done by Lu Lauer. We really have never killed a dog, today we just had a dog meal with Lu Lauer. The two people's hearts skipped a beat. They had tried to reduce their presence as much as possible before, but they didn't expect that Wang Ling would still be targeted. Just look at how badly Lu Lauer was taught a lesson. If he really catches his eye, there will be no good consequences. So the man in the shirt repeatedly begged for mercy and hurriedly cleared the relationship. The bearded man was verbose, but his words were obviously begging for mercy. Wang Ling sneered and asked, "You are not the main culprit, but you have already set your sights on Xiao He. For this reason, you should be beaten." "Hey, big brother, you really wronged me. You said you wanted to kill that stupid little black guy. It was Lu Lauer who killed Xia He. We are not familiar with him. We just happened to have dinner here today. You really don't blame us?" The man in the shirt was still begging for mercy. When Wang Ling said this, Lu Lauer started to curse, "You are such a talented scholar. You were so close to me before, but you come to my place every 3 days to hum me eat, this incident makes me half-baked. It's not your fault for provoking someone you shouldn't have provoked. Just take in your stray dogs properly, why do you still steal these dogs with owners? You can just steal them, but look at what you have provoked. Whoever comes, we will be killed by you." The man in the shirt refused to give in, and Wang Ling watched this good show before he even took action. "Good guy, this is a huge car accident scene. Brothers in ordinary days will fall out when something happens. The reality is really a bloody drama. Woof woof. Woof woof woof. Is it in here? The bull demon brought us here, there's no mistake." Clang. At this time, the bull demon had also found all the nearby trainers. Following a burst of chaotic dog barking and chatter, the iron door was suddenly kicked open, and 10 people broke in instantly. Several people, and trainers further away, have also received the news and are gradually coming here. More than a dozen people, together with more than a dozen police dogs, rushed in, and the whole courtyard instantly seemed a bit crowded. After these trainers came in, they saw the scenery in the courtyard at a glance, but their first reaction was to directly give Wang Ling a military salute. "Sir." Wang Ling did not return the greeting, but nodded slightly. This was just a symbolic meeting etiquette, but it had revealed some information. Lu Lauer and the other 3 were not fools. They guessed the identities of this group of people almost immediately. Lu Lauer and Big Beard were all stunned. And the man in the shirt was complaining endlessly, complaining, "Lao er Lu. Lao er Lu. Ching, you have captured the police dog of the previous commander in the army. Now, I have made trouble." A group of officers and soldiers came to the door. "Even if I beat you to death, it's not too much." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 666. This man in the shirt really hates Lu Lauer now. "You said you can't catch your stray dogs properly. Why do you still catch the collared ones? Just catch him, he even caught a unit commander's police dog? Isn't this an old man who hangs himself because he thinks he has a long life?" And Lu Lauer was just dumbfounded right now. He just secretly caught the dog from around a university on the edge of the county town this evening. According to what he thought, it was probably some student who secretly raised the dog. If he caught it, he would catch it. It's not a big deal. But why are there still police dogs around this school? And he caught a big one as soon as he caught it? It turned out to be a police officer's police dog. This person is so unlucky. He really has a toothache after drinking cold water. Is there anyone more unlucky than me in the world? Call. There were so many complaints in his mind in an instant, and Lu Lauer felt really bitter in his heart. However, after the bitterness subsided, he breathed a sigh of relief. Tonight, Wang Ling came with such ferocity that he thought he had offended someone on the road. He was really panicked, but in the end he did not expect that he was offended by the troops. Sir, it stands to reason that the combat effectiveness of the troops is countless times that of those on the road, but the troops are disciplined after all. If you offend them, you will just get a beating from this group of people. If you catch a small-minded person, the police may take action. Although there is a bitter fruit to be eaten, it is not fatal. But if he offends the group of lawless people on the road, he may not be able to survive tonight. This result was also a great blessing among misfortunes for Lu Laoer. Knowing that these people were from the army, he gained some confidence and lost the panic he had before. Woof woof woof. Woof woof. Woof woof. However, no matter which party was offended, tonight was not going to be a good time. After the salute, the group of police dogs saw that there were so many dogs locked up here. Xiao He, who was also a police dog, even had his legs broken. Called a man filled with indignation, barking wildly and about to rush towards Lu Laoer and three others in the courtyard. Hey, Nayuniu, don't be so impulsive. Don't make trouble, Tiger, we are here. Come back, why are you more impulsive than me? But the trainers quickly pulled them back. Just kidding, do they dare to let these police dogs rush up? It should be said that these trainers have some scruples and cannot cause death, but how can police dogs care about you? In the world of Red Police, when faced with ordinary enemy infantry, police dogs have the power to kill instantly. If this group of police dogs attacked three ordinary people, how could they tear them apart in an instant? Huh. Don't let them come. Woo. Woo. Seeing the momentum of these police dogs, Lu Laoer, the man in the shirt and the bearded man were frightened. Their faces turned pale instantly and chills ran down their spines. They also spend a lot of time with dogs. An ordinary dog can bite someone when it goes crazy, let alone a group of crazy police dogs. Fortunately, he was following a group of trainers, otherwise he would have been in trouble tonight. Sir, what's going on? Did the three of them steal Xiao He? After controlling their respective police dogs, a trainer soon asked. Wang Ling was not in the mood to answer, so he simply asked Fei Niu to explain the cause and effect in detail. After hearing this, a group of trainers looked at Lu Laoer angrily, sharpening their knives and gearing up, which scared Lu Laoer until his face turned green. However, Wang Ling interrupted them temporarily. I have already beaten this man half to death. If you beat him again, he will be killed. We are here, try to be restrained and don't make such a big fuss. Oh. But sir, is this all? I didn't say anything. I haven't beaten these two people yet, so I'll leave it to you, Wang Ling said, pointing directly at the man in the shirt and the bearded man. The man in the shirt and the bearded man immediately trembled in fright, but a group of trainers' eyes lit up, and they went up to beat the two men without any hesitation. Damn it, I'm looking for a fight. I won't be relieved if I don't beat you until you can't take care of yourself. You mother-in-law, you eat dogs. You also eat police dogs. You are so awesome, why don't you eat tigers? Hit it. If you eat too much tonight, spit it all out. Just like Wang Ling not long ago, this group of people were beating and cursing, and there were also screams from the man in the shirt and the bearded man. The noise they made was much louder than Wang Ling's. This group of people are all police dog trainers in the Red Alert world. It can be said that they accompany the police dogs day and night. Their relationship is so deep and extraordinary that it can even be compared to the love of comrades in arms. Identity affects preferences and interests. They also like other dogs. When they meet a dog dealer butcher, you can imagine how displeased and annoyed these trainers are. Now that I have met you, of course I will beat you without any discussion. However, when it comes to means, Wang Ling is more sinister. Regardless of the number of trainers, the beatings Lu Laoer received were more painful than the two of them combined. After the beating continued for a while, a group of trainers finally gave up, and the man in the shirt and the bearded man were beaten until their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. Although they are not as fierce as Wang Ling, they are a group of people after all, and they are really unambiguous in their actions. Woof woof. Woof woof woof. Hurry up, this is a dead end, it should be right here. It's unmistakable. Dahan came here after smelling the scent of other police dogs. This must be the place. However, just as this group of people stopped and before they had time to say anything, the next group of trainers, led by their respective police dogs, rushed in like a whirlwind. This group of people, more than 20 in number, rushed into the small courtyard, making the small courtyard feel like it was full of people. The first dozen or so trainers wisely took their police dogs out of the courtyard and opened up the place. The new batch of trainers repeated what the dozen or so people had done. After saluting, they controlled their respective dogs. The police dog learned the cause and effect of the incident and beat up the man in the shirt and the bearded man again. It is true that these trainers were not as shady as Wang Ling, but they were beaten up by two groups of people one after another. It was an injustice for these two people, and Lu Laoer's eyelids twitched wildly. Finally, after beating the two men almost to death, the second batch of trainers also stopped. Now that Xiao He has been rescued and beaten, according to Lu Laoer's opinion, this matter should be almost over. But unexpectedly, Wang Ling suddenly waved his hand and ordered, "Open all the dog cages and take all the dogs away." Yes. When a group of people responds to an order, they must take action. But at this time, Lu Laoer shuddered, and then rushed out. Regardless of his injuries, he hugged a dog cage and refused to let go, while cursing hurriedly, "How dare you? Soldiers, isn't that great? A soldier can just rob my dog. I caught your dog, you rescued it, you beat me, I admitted it, but why do you rob my other dogs? Dogs? They are all my property, and I still expect them to eat. In your eyes, are humans inferior to dogs? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 667. Are humans inferior to dogs? This question was so sharp that all the trainers who were originally filled with indignation were stunned. They glanced at each other and didn't know how to make a decision. They are indeed trainers in the Red Alert world, and they love their dogs as much as their lives, but they are also human beings after all. When asked this question, how can they have any clear answer in their hearts? As a result, in the tangle, everyone turned their attention to Wang Ling. It was better to let him answer such a difficult question. Under everyone's gaze, Wang Ling unclenched his fist and walked towards Lu Laoer with an indifferent expression. No one knew what Wang Ling meant. Just when he was confused, Wang Ling suddenly grabbed Lu Laoer's collar and threw him into the corner. He snorted coldly and scolded, "No need, you don't need to stand on the moral high ground to put pressure on us. I won't accept your words. Not to mention other people, at least in my eyes, you are really not as good as a dog. This question is ridiculous." After saying that, Wang Ling didn't wait for anyone else to respond, and spoke directly, "What are you doing standing still? Take action and rescue all the dogs." Yes. With Wang Ling coming forward, a group of trainers finally gained confidence and stepped forward one after another. They smashed open all the dog cages and released all the dogs. During this process, Lu Laoer almost screamed hysterically. After all, in his eyes, those dogs were his property. What Wang Ling and the others did was like robbing him of his money. But those trainers didn't care about him, and now they had all the other released dogs in their arms. These dogs, ranging from big to small, almost all had injuries on their bodies, some even more serious than Xiao He. They kept making dull groaning sounds and looked pitiful, which made all the trainers feel extremely distressed. Of course, some dogs were extremely ferocious and a little crazy, but since there were police dog trainers present, they were not afraid of this and almost subdued them easily. A group of police dogs were brought to comfort them. On the whole, these released dogs were quite well behaved. Now, everything was finally done and it was time to retreat. As Wang Ling's evacuation order was issued, a group of trainers took the police dogs and the rescued dogs and planned to leave the compound. But at this time, Lu Laoer was like crazy. He rushed to the gate quickly, closed both gates with one hand, leaned on them, looking like crazy, and cursed, "You stole my dog and you want to leave? No way. Do you think you soldiers are great? If you have the ability, arrest all the dog dealers in the country." Lu Laoer, if he faced someone on the road, he would definitely not dare to do this, but if he faced someone in the army, he would have the confidence to make such a noise. The other trainers were so angry at what he did that they wanted to beat him to death, but Wang Ling didn't allow it, so they could only endure it. Cut. However, Wang Ling did not get used to him and said sarcastically, "Don't use this kind of provocation method, it's meaningless. I don't have to risk being targeted by public opinion to do that kind of thing. As the saying goes, if you don't fight, you can't work hard. You're too lazy to fight, but you don't have the foresight. If you hadn't stolen my Zia, what would have been the result? You did it yourself, who can blame you?" Yes, Wang Ling just wanted to live a peaceful life, and he didn't want to understand the righteousness so much that he risked being not understood to be a righteous protector. However, is there any beast that will never bite? Lu Laoer has all his thoughts set on Xiao He, so why not punish him? Okay. I don't care. You can take that silly dog Xiao He away, but the other dogs have to be put down. Don't come out here until you put him down, otherwise you will beat me to death and step over my body. But Lu Laoer didn't care about Wang Ling's sarcasm, he just hoped that these people wouldn't kill him, so he just stayed here, just like a piece of meat. The other trainers were really angry. They had never seen such a shameless person. While holding the injured dog, he raised his fists and wanted to go straight to it. But at this time, Wang Ling suddenly raised his hand back and interrupted the group of people. Then, Wang Ling let out a long breath, and his expression gradually darkened. "I see, people like you are really spoiled. I won't kill you just because I don't want to make myself stink in reality, that's all. But you challenge my bottom line again and again, do you really think that I dare not kill you?" As he spoke, Wang Ling's eyes narrowed, and an extremely terrifying mental pressure spread unbridled in all directions. This mental pressure is different from the usual ones. Because he is in the red alert world, Wang Ling's mental strength is almost always reflected on the battlefield. The usual mental pressure makes people feel the fear on the battlefield. However, tonight Wang Ling took action in a rage, stripping away the sense of oppression on the battlefield, leaving only pure murderous intent, which spread and caused the temperature of the entire courtyard to suddenly drop a few points. It was the first time for Fat Niu and the others to come into contact with this kind of powerful mental pressure and this kind of fearful killing intent. Even though they were born in the world of red alert, they were affected and had goosebumps all over their bodies. Couldn't help but tremble several times. As ordinary people, the man in the shirt and the bearded man were trembling with fear. Lu Laoer, who was standing directly in front of Wang Ling, felt it the most. A chill came from his bones, making him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. "Say one more word and you will die in the next second." Why is he, Lu Laoer, so confident in Wang Ling and the others? He was just relying on Wang Ling not to kill him, but the sudden appearance of this strong murderous intention frightened Lu Laoer. His whole body was shaking, his crotch was wet, and he was grinning so much that he was about to cry. This kind of mental pressure came suddenly, but it didn't last too long before Wang Ling cancelled it. But even if it was revoked, the strong sense of panic was still deeply ingrained in Lu Lao's heart, making him tremble all the time and turn extremely pale. Now, Lu Lao really doesn't dare to be a monster anymore, but he knows that if he makes Hob meat again, Wang Ling will really kill him. Roll. Hey, hey. Sometimes, to deal with this kind of meat on the Hob, you have to be tougher. After such oppression, Lu Lao didn't dare to say another word. When Wang Ling said one word, he actually trembled. He shivered and avoided it, leaving only a patch of wetness under his crotch. Snored. After struggling for so long, Wang Ling had already had enough of staying in this courtyard. He reopened the courtyard door, took Xiao He from Fei Niu, and stepped out. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 668. After Wang Ling left, the other trainers had no reason to stay anymore and left the courtyard one after another. When the last trainer left with the police dog, the frightened Lu Lao and the other three finally felt a huge weight drop in their hearts. The man in the shirt and the bearded man simply lay on the ground and gasped, while Lu Lao just said sitting on the ground. "It's all you, Lu Lao." After taking a few breaths, the man in the shirt complained again, "What kind of dog did you steal blindly? We were all implicated by you and were almost beaten to death." Lu Lao gritted his teeth and felt very unhappy. Just when he was about to say something to refute, Wang Ling's voice suddenly came from the corridor, "Next time you make an idea for Xiao He, you know there will be what consequences." "I know, I will never do it again. I swear, if I do such stupid things again, I will be a beast and a bastard." Having been bitten by a snake once, he has been afraid of well ropes for 10 years, let alone being taught a lesson by Wang Ling and being tortured by mental pressure. Lu Lao was filled with fear from the bottom of his heart at Wang Ling's voice. Guaranteed. However, Wang Ling did not hear his vowed words later. After leaving the last warning, Wang Ling has now led the trainers and gradually left here. As for whether Lu Lao will continue to engage in this profession in the future, Wang Ling cannot interfere too much. In the real world, Wang Ling is a student, not a law enforcer, nor a saint. In order to search and rescue Xiao He, Wang Ling went to war tonight. Not only did he summon all the trainers and even police dogs from the Red Alert world, he also personally taught Lu Lao a lesson, and ended up with troop commander. However, fortunately, Wang Ling's identity and abilities were not completely exposed. Except for Lu Lao, the man in the shirt, and the bearded man who saw them with Wang Ling, no one else in the group of trainers paid any attention at all. As for Wang Ling himself, he only released electromagnetic attacks when rescuing Xiao He, which was not considered bizarre overall. As for his face, it was hard to see clearly in the dark night. Even with the faint light in the living room, it looked blurry. Even if they really saw clearly, it didn't matter. Lu Lao and the other two people just regarded Wang Ling as a member of the army, and there was no clue at all. However, if Professor Li Dong knew all this tonight, this old professor would be able to make some wild guesses. Of course, these are no longer things Wang Ling is considering at this stage. Walking on the dark country road in the ancient city village, Fei Niu asked, "Brother Ling, what should we do next?" Wang Ling thought for a while and replied, "Including Xiao He, all the dogs are injured. I happen to know a pet clinic. Let's go there and treat Xiao He and the others first. It's so distressing to see them like this." "Got it?" "It's already night, is the doctor still open?" "I don't know, I have to go and have a look first." "Good. Now that the plan is finalized, the next step is to rush to the pet clinic." The group of people accelerated their pace, left the ancient city and village, and walked to the road with street lights. The pet clinic was quite far away from here. Wang Ling originally planned to take a taxi there together. It was best to take a few taxis as we got older. However, the taxis that passed by did not allow police dogs and stray dogs to board. Only a few taxis were allowed. Brother Neng reluctantly agreed. As many as he could bring, Wang Ling told his brother the address. After paying the bill in advance, he temporarily handed Xiao He to Fei Niu. In addition, he asked Fat Hu and others to follow him and take the stray dogs with the most serious injuries first. Take a taxi to the pet clinic. Without those seriously injured stray dogs, the remaining minor injuries can be relieved. After the taxi left, Wang Ling directly took the other trainers, hugged the remaining stray dogs, and led the police dogs to sprint all the way. I rushed to the pet clinic and it took more than 20 minutes to arrive. When he arrived at the pet clinic, Wang Ling was stunned because he saw the lights were on inside the pet clinic, but the door was broken. He rushed in anxiously, only to find two veterinarians looking at each other with serious expressions on their faces. The black ones were bandaging the wounds of the two stray dogs, while Fei Niu and others were sitting aside, staring at the two veterinarians. The atmosphere at the scene was very tense. It seemed that if there was any disagreement, these trainers would start to beat them. Same as people. What's going on? Wang Ling blinked and asked confusedly. When they saw Wang Ling and his group arriving, the eyelids of the two veterinarians jumped, and they seemed to be quite frightened. The person who explained was Fei Niu. Brother Ling, this place was closed when we came, but the lights were still on inside. It was obviously occupied, but no matter how we knocked, there was no answer. We were so anxious that we smashed the door. Let them come out. After Wang Ling heard this, he was choked and couldn't say a word. Damn, is this too barbaric? Yes, they all came from the world of Red Alert. They are tough and not very familiar with the real world. It is not surprising that they can do such a thing. However, the doctor was wronged, sir. Although the lights are on here, the two of us had already planned to take a rest. We were not in the consulting room. It was a bit late when we heard the knock on the door, but we were just about to go over and open the door. There was a bang sound and our door was smashed down. But Fat Niu didn't appreciate it. That's nice to say, but who knows if they don't open the door on purpose. After business hours, they won't treat patients if they come to the door. This is really unjust. You are wrongly accused. If you delay Xiao Hei's treatment, believe it or not, I will destroy your clinic. Fat cow. This fat cow was so savage that he was almost cued. In the end, Wang Ling had to interrupt him and reprimanded him in front of two doctors before letting the fat cow talk to the two doctors. Sorry, the expressions of the two doctors finally softened a little. Among this group of people, there is always one person who is easy to talk to. My Wu. After resolving this embarrassing conflict, Wang Ling heard a familiar low voice. He followed the sound and saw that under a pet stand, Xiao He was limping towards him. There were also wounds on his injured paw. It has been clamped onto a wooden frame and bandaged. Xiao He. Seeing Xiao He, Wang Ling felt a little anxious. He squatted down to comfort him a few times, and then asked, Doctor, how is Xiao He? Is the injury to this claw serious? It happened that at this time, a veterinarian finished bandaging the wound of a stray dog, wiped his sweat, and replied, It's very serious. I don't know how it did it. It has a comminuted fracture. I'm afraid it will be permanently disabled in the future. My cousin is getting married tomorrow, and she will be back the day after tomorrow. She is both in the city, and she will be away for a few days. I really can't say how much time I have to type, so I'm taking a day off tomorrow and will resume updating the day after tomorrow. Sorry for that. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 669. Comminuted fracture. Lifelong disability. Doctor, are you kidding me? Hearing these two words, Wang Ling was stunned for a moment, and then he started shouting like crazy at the veterinarian who just spoke. This momentum shocked even the doctors, but seeing that Wang Ling didn't make too many other movements, unlike the other barbaric guys, he felt relieved and explained, "I'm not kidding, this should be a police dog, right? His name is Xiao He. He is a very well-behaved police dog, and he is also very tolerant. He should be in great pain when we touched the bones for diagnosis, but no matter how much pain he had, he did not resist, which made me feel a little bit unbearable." At this point, the veterinarian couldn't help but sigh. Another veterinarian simply accused him directly, "You are retired police dog trainers, right? Shouldn't the police dog be your brother and your life to you? Why are you so negligent in taking care of it and getting it injured like this? I blame me." Wang Ling was choked to the point of being speechless, and in the end he could only regretfully accept all the blame. Of course, in addition to regret, Wang Ling was also very angry now. He even wished he could go back to the ancient city and village again, find Lu Laoer and beat him half to death. If Lu Laoer knew about his idea, he would have to run away overnight, and he would also run away crying. My woo. And as if he was aware of Wang Ling's sadness, Xiao He rubbed Wang Ling's face to comfort him even though he was injured. However, its sensible look not only did not make Wang Ling feel better, it actually made Wang Ling feel more distressed. His eye circles were even a little red. "Xiao He, I'm sorry, it's all my fault for making you suffer. Isn't it?" Back in the red alert world, Xiao He starved to death waiting for him. This person was finally resurrected in the real world, but his leg was broken by a dog dealer. As Xiao He's trainer and owner, how could Wang Ling not feel distressed? Not only him, but also other trainers felt the same way. For a moment, the scene was filled with sad emotions. Ahem, what kind of drama are you acting? Are you chivalrous and tender? A majestic coalition hero, killing countless enemies on the battlefield, but in the end you are so sad because of a police dog. But just when Wang Ling was about to cry, something in his mind but Uncle He's voice suddenly came out. After all, he was used to Uncle He's intrusion and his voice. Wang Ling was not surprised by this, but he was dissatisfied with his teasing words and answered in his mind, "Uncle He, this can be the same really? You just stand and talk without your back hurting." Hee hee. Uncle He smiled mockingly, "Don't tell me, I just stand and talk without back pain. Dot. Okay, I won't joke with you anymore. This time I saw that you were really confused, so I reminded you that this should be a good thing for you." After Uncle He joked, he suddenly changed his tone. "Good thing." When Wang Ling heard these two words, his eyes lit up. "Yes, the last time I was heartbroken in front of Xiao He's tombstone, Uncle He suddenly spoke up and said a good thing, and Xiao He was indeed resurrected in the real world one day. Something good is happening now, right? Who said comminuted fractures can't be healed? Isn't the medical level and technology not developed enough? Sure enough, Uncle He really broke the news. If your arm is broken now, can you do it yourself? Are you cured?" Wang Ling answered without thinking, "Of course. Intermediate enhancement has this kind of healing effect. Although it is not as good as the elite soldiers in the red alert world, it takes longer. As long as it is not a fatal injury, it can be recovered." Just when he said this, Wang Ling suddenly thought of something. "Uncle He, are you talking about the enhancer? But isn't the enhancer a system exchange potion? Can this thing also be used by Xiao He?" "Why not?" After Uncle He left these last words, there was no sound again. However, these messages are enough. After Wang Ling heard this, his eyes were shining. Looking back, this is indeed the case. The enhancer exchanged by the system does not mean that the exchange will have a direct strengthening effect, but a corresponding reagent will be exchanged and injected on the spot. Since it has a carrier, it means that it does not have to be a host of a different dimensional system to inject it. Moreover, Xiao He, this group of trainers, and even Sun Dehu can be summoned to the real world, so it is naturally possible to bring out the strengthening agent. How much more surprises can this different dimensional system give me? Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh when he thought of this. Now that there is a solution, Wang Ling will not continue to be sad. However, this extra-dimensional system and various strengthening agents must not be exposed. Now is not a good time to inject Xiaohe. Wang Ling simply calmed down, wiped his face, let out a sigh of relief, and in turn comforted the other trainers. Brothers, don't be too sad, I will definitely be able to cure Xiaohe, don't worry. Although the others came from the Red Alert world, they had never been exposed to enhancers and were somewhat skeptical of Wang Ling's statement. But since Wang Ling said so, they had no choice but to believe it. Next, Wang Ling asked the trainers to leave all the stray dogs in the pet clinic. He came to two busy veterinarians and said, "Doctor, to be honest, we snatched these stray dogs from dog dealers after all, they are so pitiful. However, we cannot take care of them all the time. Relatively speaking, you are more suitable. Can I leave them to you to take care of them, or send them to a shelter or something?" This. The two veterinarians seemed a little embarrassed and reluctant, but Wang Ling immediately stepped up his game and paid double the treatment fee. After receiving no reward for their efforts, the two veterinarians finally stopped shirking. Later, Wang Ling used mobile payment to exchange 10,000 yuan in cash with two veterinarians. He left the clinic with all the other trainers and police dogs and came to an empty construction site. "Brothers, after this summons, you should also know who you and I are. Since we parted ways in the Red Alert world, many of us have never met again. Some of you I have died fighting with my dogs in the Red Alert world, and some people have witnessed the death of their dogs. I feel the same way and know how much you cherish the time with your dogs now. So this time, I will not disturb your gathering. The summoning time I have just given you has been extended by 1 day, and each of you has given you a sum of cash. Take advantage of this time to hang out with your dog more and buy more food and play for it. As for us, don't worry, as long as I don't die, I will summon you all out when I have time, and reunite and indulge as much as you want. Okay, from now on, until you return to the system, it will be your free time. As long as you don't do anything in this world, I won't interfere in anything illegal, so let's disband." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 670. After all, he had been a police dog trainer for several months and had personally experienced life and death with Xiaohe. Wang Ling was very clear about the emotions between these trainers and their corresponding dogs. However, it is clear that the different dimensional system has points after all, and it is impossible to keep everyone and the police dogs in the real world forever, so extending the 24 hours is the only thing Wang Ling can do for these police dogs and police dogs at this stage. The trainers did it? "Sir, you are mighty. Wow, haha, I like it. Brother Ling, I love you so much. Haha, although we are still alive in the Red Alert world, it's not bad to hang out with the bull demon in the real world. Woof woof woof. Dot. The trainers were also very grateful. Everyone was smiling. Even the police dogs were jumping around, obviously very excited. Who said the only smart police dog is Xiaohe? After disbanding, you get the money. After all, they come from the Red Alert world. These people are penniless, but in this real world, it is difficult to move without money. This 10,000 yuan, with Wang Ling's current points level, is just a drop in the bucket. If it is distributed to this group of trainers, it will not hurt at all. After a while, almost everyone received the money, and only the fat cows were left. Wang Ling personally handed the last few $100 into his hand, then lowered his body and touched the bull demon's dog head, and sighed, "In the real world, My bad friends all say that Xiao He has become a sperm. However, compared with you, it is still far behind. I just discovered now that the smartest police dog is not Xiao He, but you, the bull demon. My woo. The bull demon seemed to enjoy the compliments, and actually made a low moan similar to Xiao He's, and grinned as if he was really smiling. Fat Niu didn't understand what was going on, and looked confused. Brother Ling, why? Wang Ling didn't point it out. It's nothing, let's go play. Why? After responding, Fat Ox scratched his head, led the bull demon and walked away. His lecturing voice could be heard in the distance. You stupid bitch, you still laugh, making it seem like you really understand. I didn't even understand it, why do you understand it? Woof woof. Woof woof, the bull demon seemed to want to speak. The man and the dog made Wang Ling laugh a little. Why did Wang Ling say that? Because when these police dogs go to the battlefield, it can be said that most of them have died in battle, either parting with their trainers or dying together, which has staged one tragedy after another. However, this guy, the bull demon, bit the fat cow to lameness from the very beginning when he was at the training base. Although it is said that a fat cow will be disabled for a lifetime because of this, how can you know that it is a blessing in disguise? Due to this leg injury, Fei Niu was not sent to the battlefield. Instead, he stayed at the training base and stayed with Niu Mo day and night. Thinking about how sad Wang Ling was when he learned the news of Xiao He's death, and then looking at the fat cow and the bull demon, Wang Ling actually felt a little envious in comparison. That's all, it's all over. Xiao He, let's go back. We'll heal your leg injury when we get back. My woo. After looking away, Wang Ling hugged Xiao He and walked towards the school step by step. Although he has been in school for nearly 2 years, looking back on these 2 years, it seems that he has rarely had such a pleasant walk outside the school. Wang Ling sighed and walked very slowly. Firstly, he did not want to hurt Xiao He, and secondly, I came here also to make myself clean and clear, and to relax my mind. After walking for more than an hour, the man and the dog finally arrived near the school. Wang Ling suddenly remembered that he hadn't eaten yet tonight, so he went to the roadside to take a look. He found that the dinner he had left on the roadside because he was looking for Xiao He was still there and no one had touched it. Although it was already cold, Wang Ling didn't care. He carried Xiao He on his back, picked up the dinner and beer, and walked all the way back to the dormitory building. When we climbed to the 6th floor and didn't have time to enter, a guy from the dormitory opposite saw him and was shocked on the spot. Damn, what kind of treatment does Xiao He get? He even gets a car when traveling. Go, what are you talking about? Wang Ling's face turned dark and he scolded him directly, but he was laughed at and didn't ask any questions. After returning to the dormitory and putting down his things, Wang Ling didn't even think about finishing his meal. He simply shouted in his head, Uncle He came back. Well, help me exchange the basic physical fitness enhancer into the real world. Good. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, a small black vortex suddenly appeared in front of Wang Ling, and a tube of reagent slowly floated out from it, which was caught by Wang Ling. However, before injecting Xiao He, Wang Ling hesitated. Uncle He, I still remember the pain when injecting this type of enhancer. It was so painful. Xiao He can bear it. Are you suffering from this kind of pain? What about this? Let me tell you something that you may not like to hear, Uncle He pretended. After hearing this, Wang Ling seemed a little worried. What are you talking about? Your perseverance is not as good as Xiao He. As the words Uncle He popped up, Wang Ling was choked and speechless, but his face was a little ugly. However, he really couldn't refute anything. When they were at the training base, Wang Ling once raced with Xiao He. Although they both fell exhausted in the end, Xiao He went over to check on Wang Ling's condition before he fell down. At that time, Wang Ling he could no longer move at all. Furthermore, when longing becomes a disease, even if he is tempted by his favorite food, he will go on a hunger strike until he starves to death, and even refuses to sleep for several days in a row. With this kind of perseverance, Wang Ling asked himself, he is afraid that he cannot do it. Of course, this method of almost self-mutilation is absolutely not recommended and should not be attempted. Recalling these things, Wang Ling felt a little more relieved. After Xiao He was ready, he directly injected the basic strengthening agent into it. Roar. As soon as the strengthening agent entered the body, it began to transform. The pain at that moment also made Xiao He roar, grinning, looking very fierce. However, that's all. Xiao He's pain was not as painful as that of Wang Ling, who was rolling around in embarrassment. For several minutes, he just kept growling, and Wang Ling didn't use Wang Ling to comfort him at all. After waiting for a few minutes, the enhancement was completed. Xiao He, who had completed the basic enhancement, was obviously much more energetic than before. His dog eyes seemed to be shining. After he growled, he actually grinned, as if he was smiling. It seems to be showing off. Okay, Xiao He. This basic strengthening was really painful for me at first, but you are completely fine. Did it not work? Wang Ling exclaimed. But Uncle He immediately said sarcastically, you have such a big face. Why don't you say that your endurance is not as good as Xiao He's? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 671. Dare you say that the enhancer didn't work? Ultra high-tech products cannot tolerate such blasphemy from you. After hearing this, Uncle He couldn't help but get angry, as if he was quarreling. After hearing this, Wang Ling twitched the corner of his mouth. That's what I said, and you still take it seriously. TCH, Uncle He didn't want to pay attention to him. After hitting a snag, Wang Ling touched his nose, feeling quite embarrassed. However, Wang Ling was more or less used to Uncle He's attitude. He shook his head and didn't respond. Instead, he looked at the current Xiao He up and down. Not to mention, after this strengthening, Xiao He's energy and spirit have indeed changed significantly, and he is obviously more energetic than before. Of course, this enhancer mainly enhances physical strength, which cannot be seen from the appearance alone. However, Wang Ling couldn't test Xiao He's appearance now. The injured leg was still fractured, and the basic strengthening did not allow Xiao He to gain the ability to heal his wounds. You still have to continue to strengthen. Thinking of this, Wang Ling immediately wanted to redeem the intermediate enhancer. However, when he was about to speak, he suddenly stopped. After thinking for a moment, he simply let Xiao He enter the transfer station of the different dimensional system. He also lay on the bed, and his deep consciousness entered it. Xiao He, although he has a very strong endurance when injecting the basic strengthening agent, the pain of this intermediate strengthening is far beyond what can be compared with the basic strengthening. In reality, if the injection is not guaranteed, something big will happen. As for the probability of failure, Wang Ling wasn't too worried about anything. Although he didn't want to admit it, Xiao He's perseverance was indeed better than his. He could succeed in the first place, so why couldn't Xiao He? After arriving at the transfer station of the different dimensional system, Wang Ling nodded slightly to Uncle He, said hello, and directly exchanged the intermediate enhancer. Xiao He, this intermediate enhancement is much more painful than the basic enhancement. Are you ready? Wang Ling asked alone before the injection. My Wu. Xiao He raised his head and grinned, as if he was saying I've been ready for a long time. In this case, Wang Ling had nothing to hesitate. He directly reached out and injected the intermediate strengthening agent into Xiao He's body. Roar. The effect of this intermediate strengthening agent is much stronger than the basic strengthening agent, but it is also much more painful. As soon as it enters the body, Xiao He's whole body trembles violently, and a painful low roar comes from his throat. At this time, Xiao He was far from the calmness he had when he was basically strengthened. A pair of dog eyes revealed strong pain, but he was still forcibly enduring it. As a result, his body trembled more and more exaggeratedly. Roar woof. Woof woof. Woof woof. Finally, when the pain continued to intensify to the second stage and began to target its bones, the severe pain was even unbearable for Xiao He. He began to bark crazily and rolled on the ground. It seemed that wanting to use this to relieve some of the pain. However, Wang Ling, who had personally experienced this kind of enhancement, knew that it was useless to do so and could only endure the pain for life. Come on, Xia He, hold on, it will be over soon. While watching with worry, Wang Ling also clenched his fists and shouted in encouragement. Woof woof woof. Woof woof woof. Of course, this ends relatively quickly. In fact, this session will last for a few minutes. The pain during this period is also difficult for Xiao He to bear. He keeps rolling and screaming, as if he is crazy, then such pain, as if he wished he could hit himself to death. Kaka. Kaka. After strengthening to this point, all the bones in Xiao He's body were finally forcibly broken by the strengthening agent. The crisp sound of bone cracking made Wang Ling tremble a little. Roar. All the bones were shattered. After this severe pain, Xiao He's body seemed to have no bones, and he fell to the ground. Only a low growl kept coming from his throat, as if he was telling his story all the time. Pain. Click. Click. After the bones were broken, they immediately began to reorganize. The pain at this stage was naturally not as intense as when it was broken, but it was not much better. Under the pain, Xiao He's whole body was shaking violently, and painful tears even fell from the corners of his eyes involuntarily. Seeing this scene, Wang Ling was so heartbroken that he even regretted it. This kind of pain is simply worse than having your legs broken. Certainly. Uncle He answered affirmatively. You have also experienced the pain of intermediate level intensification. Ordinary people cannot survive it if they are not strong-willed. To make a comparison, if the pain of childbirth for women in the real world is 10, then this intermediate level the total pain of strengthening is between 50 and 60. It is 5 or 6 times more painful than childbirth. How many times more uncomfortable would you say this is than simply having your leg broken? After Wang Ling heard this, he suddenly fell silent. He had indeed experienced that kind of pain personally, and he still shudders when he thinks about it. It was simply a nightmare on his way to strengthening. Even if he were to go through it again now, he wouldn't have the courage to endure it alive. Past. Seeing Xiao He's current appearance, Wang Ling naturally couldn't bear it. However, Uncle He said with relief, you don't have to worry too much. The world is always fair. The road to becoming stronger is always accompanied by pain. If you want the effect of intermediate strengthening, then the pain of this strengthening is what you have to endure close. I got it, Uncle He. Wang Ling took a deep breath, and after some persuasion, he completely looked away. Roar. Roar. In the conversation between one person and one brain, Xiao He has completed the second stage of strengthening and repairing, and then started the third stage, which is the last stage of strengthening, a large-scale strengthening of the whole body's epidermis. The strengthening agent of this system, the basic strengthening, targets the tissues all over the body, while the intermediate strengthening targets the muscles, bones and skin. Compared with the former, the strengthening process of the latter is divided into 3 stages after all, which is more painful and troublesome. However, among the 3 major stages, this has also reached the last stage. Although this strengthening of the epidermis is extremely painful, it is much gentler than the previous 2 stages. He has already experienced the pain of broken bones. Xiao He has obviously experienced a lot of pain at this stage. Strong adaptability, no more exaggerated rolling barks, just low growls, struggling to endure. This process lasted for a few more minutes, and then Xiao Hei's trembling gradually stopped. This intermediate strengthening seemed to have ended. However, Xiao Hei closed his eyes and remained motionless, which made Wang Ling quite worried. He slowly stepped forward and touched Xiao Hei's head, and asked, "Xiao Hei, are you okay?" Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished asking, Xiao Hei suddenly opened his eyes, and his bright eyes even made Wang Ling blink. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 672. Ouch. Wang Ling quickly flashed his eyes and took a moment to adjust before looking at Xiao Hei again. After this guy opened his eyes, he raised the corners of his mouth in an extremely humane manner, as if he was smiling proudly. His dog eyes were bright and shining, and he looked at Wang without blinking. Ling. After Wang Ling looked at it for a while, he smiled and joked, "Is this the legendary 24K titanium alloy dog eye? My woo." No matter how smart Xiao Hei is, he still doesn't understand the jokes on the internet. He immediately tilted his head and showed a confused look. But Wang Ling had no intention of explaining this and hurriedly asked, "Xiao Hei, how are you doing now?" Woof. As if to deliberately demonstrate his current strength, Xiao Hei barked loudly on the spot. The sound was so loud that it was comparable to the roar of a lion, and it made Wang Ling's periosteum numb. This is not over yet. The bone fracture and reorganization in the second stage of intermediate strengthening has directly healed Xiao Hei's fracture. After barking, he stood up directly, and then the two brothers slapped Wang Ling with a paw. Shoulders. Boom. If you don't slap him, you won't know it. A slap will startle you. Although it seems to be a random claw, to Wang Ling, it is like an iron bar slamming into his shoulder from 10 meters above the ground. The force of this moment is so great. It was so violent that he couldn't help but kneel down on one knee, and his whole shoulder and arm were numb with pain. Woof woof. Seeing that it had a show-off effect, Xiao Hei was so proud that he barked for a while like he was having fun. However, Wang Ling was dumbfounded. He waited for a while and then reprimanded dissatisfiedly, "Xiao Hei, you want to beat me to death? It's thanks to my strong body. If it were anyone else, you would have been like this." One claw fell apart. My woo. Being scolded by Wang Ling, Xiao Hei felt aggrieved and lowered his head in an exaggerated manner, while glancing at Wang Ling from time to time. This naive look really amused Wang Ling. He reached out and touched Xiao Hei's dog's head, and then extended his hand to shake hands as usual. Seeing this familiar posture, Xiao Hei immediately became happy, raised the dog's paw and put it down. Boom. However, Xiao Hei also failed to control the strength of this claw, and Wang Ling's palm hit the ground with one claw, causing pain. My woo. This time, Xiao Hei learned the lesson and knew that he had caused trouble. Without waiting for Wang Ling to reprimand him, he lowered his head in a grieved manner, which made Wang Ling dumbfounded. At this time, Wang Ling suddenly thought of something. When he completed the intermediate strengthening and his physical strength increased significantly, he could not control it well. Not only did he burst the water glass in the restaurant and beverage shop, but he also destroyed many things in the dormitory. Rotten. At the moment, Xiao Hei is obviously also in this situation. As soon as the strengthening is completed, he cannot adapt to this powerful force for a while. However, now that the leg injury has healed, these problems no longer matter. If Wang Ling was able to master it through exercise, then Xiao Hei should be able to do the same. Thinking of this, Wang Ling directly asked Uncle Hei for a flying saucer that Xiao Hei had played with before, and handed it to Xiao Hei. "Here, Xiao Hei, try to bite it and spin it twice." Xiao Hei obeyed Wang Ling's words and immediately opened his mouth and took a bite. Click. As a result, the little gadget that Xiao Hei usually couldn't break no matter how much he tried, was actually chewed to pieces by him. "Oh my god, please control your strength." Wang Ling patted his forehead helplessly, while Xiao He lowered his head aggrievedly, and glanced at Wang Ling secretly. To be honest, now that the enhancement is completed, Xiao He's injuries have recovered, and it is time to return to the real world. However, Xiao He like this makes Wang Ling even more worried. If he goes back like this, he will have to tear down the entire dormitory. That power much better than Ha. After much deliberation, let Xiao He practice how to control his power in this transfer station first. During the winter vacation, Wang Ling didn't dare to take Xiao He home, so he let him live in the transit station. He had a small nest of his own, so Wang Ling just let Xiao He go to the nest and practice by himself first. As a result, Xiao He walked to his small house and stood up as usual, intending to open the door, but this time, boom! The whole door was stunned by it being knocked down so directly. Oh my god! Wang Ling slapped his forehead with one hand, and Xiao He seemed to be escaping from his scolding, and hurriedly got in, and then the sound of ping pong 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 was heard from time to time. In order to exercise this control ability, Xiao He did not know how many things he would destroy with this operation. Fortunately, he did not bring it back to the real world immediately. Ha 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 ha. With such a naive look, Wang Ling was helpless, but Uncle He laughed without hesitation. Wang Ling spread his hands, and after listening for a while, he said, "Uncle He, after Xiao He received the intermediate enhancement, why do I feel that many of its movements have become a little more humane? It seems to be smarter than before, and it can be done directly. Feel my emotional changes and act humanely accordingly." Uncle He was not surprised and answered calmly, "This is a natural and systematic enhancer. When injected into the human body, it can greatly enhance the corresponding abilities of the human body. When injected into the body of animals, it will also have a similar strengthening effect, and it will also come with its function is to gradually open up the animal's intelligence." Oh! When Wang Ling heard this, he immediately became interested. How come I'm so humane? Xiao He is already smart. Now that his spiritual intelligence is activated, isn't he even smarter and somewhat similar to humans? Uncle He smiled and said nothing. In fact, if the enhancer is strengthened to the end and the animal's intelligence is greatly opened, then the intelligence of the corresponding animal will really be no worse than that of ordinary people. Xiao He, come out first. Wang Ling thought for a while, didn't know what he thought of, and hurriedly called Xiao He out. Hearing the sound, Xiao He shouted woof woof twice, then smashed the window and ran over, stopping in front of Wang Ling and wagging his tail. Uncle He was also dumbfounded. "You bitch, do you know that this place can be repaired at will, so you don't even take the usual route when you go out?" As he spoke, Uncle He snapped his fingers, and all the things originally destroyed by Xiao He were restored to their original state in an instant. However, Wang Ling didn't care about this. Instead, he touched Xiao He's head and asked, "Xiao He, can you speak human language?" "My wu." Xiao He immediately shook his head. Wang Ling did not give up. "Let me teach you. When you learn human language, we will use human language to communicate. I'll pour it." As soon as he said these words, Xiao He didn't have time to react. Uncle He's originally translucent and floating body suddenly froze, then staggered suddenly and almost landed on the ground. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 673. Uncle He was choked by Wang Ling at this moment, but fortunately he reacted in time, regained his translucency and floated, and then scolded him, "You melon, what are you thinking? No matter how smart Xiao He is, it's also a police dog, and reinforcers can't change this reality, nor can it change its species. You can't think of teaching a dog to speak human language. It's true that this enhancer is a super powerful technological product, but it is also a simple enhancement within the scope of science. Well, Wang Ling suddenly thought wrongly. Even Uncle He had to correct him in time. But Wang Ling is still a little unconvinced. No, Uncle He, didn't you say that you have gradually opened up your spiritual intelligence? Then I teach it a foreign language, isn't it too much? At this time, Uncle He was choked even harder. Although it was an artificial intelligence brain, it seemed as if he had not been able to lift it up in one breath. It took him a while to curse. What is a foreign language? That is a language between different countries of your human race. It's just a different language, but after all, it's still the same biological species. But if you were asked to learn bird language, would you be able to learn it? Do you understand what it means? In turn, if you were asked to learn dog language, would you be able to learn it? Aren't you better than a dog? Clever. What a sharp explanation. Wang Ling felt a little ashamed and blushed after hearing it. Think about it, this is indeed the case. No matter how smart Xiao He is, he can even understand all human speech, but he is a dog after all. Let the dog learn human speech. It seems a little bit like forcing people to make things difficult. No, it's like trying to force dogs to make things difficult. Woof woof. At this time, it was finally Xiao He's turn to speak, and these few barks seemed to express his protest. Wang Ling's face darkened, and he patted Xiao He's butt. Okay, I don't want to trouble you, hurry up and practice as soon as possible, and master how to control the force as soon as possible. If you are not good at controlling it, you will not be allowed to eat in the real world tonight. Woof woof. My woof. As soon as he heard that Wang Ling had restricted it, Xiao He immediately panicked. He quickly turned around and ran away, followed by another sound of jingling bells. In order to go to the real world and have dinner, this guy worked hard enough. But there is no other way. The control of this strength must be passed, otherwise Wang Ling will not dare to let it return to the real world. If you break something, that's secondary. If you hurt someone, you'll be in trouble. For this reason, Wang Ling had to force Xiao He to adapt and control it as soon as possible. He even started to do it himself and trained it for a long time in the transfer station of this different dimensional system, so that it could gradually master this enhanced body. After several tests and confirmation that he would no longer exert force indiscriminately, Wang Ling felt relieved. After saying hello to Uncle He, they returned to the real world and had dinner together. During dinner, Wang Ling was also a little surprised. After Xiao He was strengthened at the intermediate level, his appetite increased greatly and he could eat twice as much as usual. Ordinary families really couldn't afford to feed him. Moreover, with the change in body strength, this thing can accept more food. It can eat everything that humans eat. For example, tonight's kebab with a lot of chili peppers, Xiao He is going to compete with Wang Ling. Even after he downed a bottle of beer, Wang Ling kept scolding him, "You bitch, you've really become a sperm." But every time, Xiao He curled his lips, shouted woof, woof twice, and then continued to do whatever he was doing, which made Wang Ling dumbfounded. Although it had been strengthened by abnormality, Wang Ling was still a little worried about eating it in such a way. He didn't go to Red Alert World again tonight, and simply kept observing this guy until the next night, but he didn't see it. It is truly reassuring if there is any discomfort. After dinner, Wang Ling lay on the bed after playing with the little girl as usual, with some thoughts floating in his mind. The more Wang Ling came into contact with this extra-dimensional system, the more mysterious it became. Several types of enhancers could not only strengthen the host, but also strengthen people other than the host, and even other living things. With this function alone, if the different dimensional system falls into the hands of someone with ulterior motives, how much can be done with this enhancer? If you do it to the extreme, I'm afraid it can overturn the whole world. Thinking of this, Wang Ling shuddered violently and realized the seriousness of the consequences. As the saying goes, no one is guilty of the crime of harboring a treasure. Although Wang Ling was alone and tried his best to be a commoner, holding on to the hot potato of the different dimensional system also made all his things invisible. In this extra-dimensional system, nothing can be exposed, not even the people you trust most can tell it. After making this decision, Wang Ling couldn't help but stretched out his hand, looked at the looming interdimensional system disguised as a bracelet on his wrist, and smiled bitterly. It's all because of this thing. Of course, while complaining, Wang Ling was also rejoicing. Fortunately, this thing chose him, Wang Ling, and not someone else. At least at this stage, Wang Ling did not have any thoughts of doing evil by relying on the extra-dimensional system. After putting down his arms, Wang Ling washed up briefly. He was just about to enter the world of Red Alert, but suddenly thought of something. He asked in his mind without even entering the transfer station, "Uncle, hey, I thought of one thing. Since the enhancer, if it can be used by other people, can it be used by people in the Red Alert world?" That's right, what Wang Ling was thinking about at this time was the old men under his wolf group. If the enhancer could be successfully injected, wouldn't it greatly enhance the survival chances of these old men in the Red Alert world? Wang Ling is too nostalgic. Every battle in the Red Alert world will be accompanied by sacrifices. Although he has long looked past it, sadness is still inevitable. Especially those old subordinates who had followed him from the beginning, Wang Ling didn't want to see any of them die. "Haha, you little melon, you finally got to the point." Uncle He seemed to have been waiting for Wang Ling's question for a long time, and immediately replied, "Unfortunately, we can't inject them with enhancers directly in the Red Alert world." That's it. When Wang Ling heard this, he couldn't help but look disappointed. But, however, Uncle He made a sudden turn and explained, "You can't inject directly, but you can inject indirectly." "Indirect injection? What do you mean?" Wang Ling's eyes lit up and he asked again and again. Uncle He replied, "As the name suggests, it uses the different dimensional exchange system to materialize the characters in the Red Alert world and summon them into the real world or into a transit station. In that case, you can inject them with strengthening agents. After the strengthening is successful, the game characters will also receive corresponding strengthening effects." "Where is this strengthening effect reflected? Only in the real world? Or will it also be strengthened in the Red Alert world?" "Of course, there are strengthening effects in both worlds, but the rules of the system will not change. The real world is injected with strengthening agents. The game characters in the Red Alert world will have corresponding strengthening effects, but there will be no memory of the real world." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 674. Is that so? Great. After Wang Ling heard this, he was overjoyed. He was even more excited than when he demolished the last Yuri base not long ago. Now that he thought about it, he did it. Wang Ling also acted vigorously at this time. After saying hello to Xiao He, he went directly to the transfer station of the different dimension system. After careful consideration, he transferred Sun Dehua, Erlu, and Li Tong, Gu Suanwu. These four people were temporarily summoned. In the Red Alert world, Wang Ling has been struggling for too long and has established a deep comradeship with many people, but the closest ones are still these four people. Of course, there should be the fifth instructor from when he was a recruit. However, Wang Ling has never adjusted his mentality. He doesn't know how to meet his instructor, so he has never tried to summon him. The main goal of this enhancement is to improve the survival probability of this group of comrades. Since the instructor has died in the Red Alert world, Wang Ling naturally did not consider the instructor for this enhancement. This is not the first time that the four of them, Sun Dehua, have been summoned. The last time they were summoned, I remember they were summoned to assist when they eliminated a group of pickpockets in their hometown. As for this summons, the four of them obviously still remembered the last summons. After coming out, they looked at the transfer station of the interdimensional system, then happily greeted Wang Ling and asked about the results of the last incident. Wang Ling was also happy to chat with them, and immediately told them all about the results of the last processing. These people were not people in the real world, so they were just listening to the story. After saying this, Wang Ling finally got to the point. Li Tong and Gu Suanwu, you two are my old comrades in the 5th company of recruits. You should have seen with your own eyes how poor my physical fitness is when I first arrived in the world of Red Alert, right? Li Tong smiled and said, yes, I ran for several kilometers and let the instructor chase me like a grandson. Erlu rushed in, damn it, team leader, do you still have this dark history? Hey, when I return to the Red Alert world, I have to publicize it. This guy really never forgets to joke no matter where he goes. Wang Ling's face turned dark after hearing this. Stop talking nonsense, it's just like what you remember in the real world in the Red Alert world. Hey, I forgot about this. Erlu scratched his head in embarrassment, which made the others laugh. After laughing, Wang Lingke said, when I first came to the world of Red Alert, my physical fitness was indeed poor. Although through my personal efforts, I have gradually caught up with other comrades in the same period, I want to surpass them comprehensively and achieve what I am today. At this point, just relying on pure passion and hard work is still not enough. To be honest, I took advantage of the convenience of the system and injected 2 physical fitness enhancers to achieve this result. Strengthening agent. Damn it, team leader, you are cheating. Sun Dehua became anxious after hearing this. To be honest, when you and I fought for the first time, were you injected with strengthening agent? Wang Ling admitted in a bachelor's manner, that's right, but at that time I only received basic strengthening agents. It's not fair, it's not fair. I don't accept it, Sun Dehua protested angrily, and the others nodded especially to support Sun Dehua. Wang Ling couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, isn't it fair? Well, I'll give you fairness today. As he spoke, Wang Ling directly exchanged 4 basic physical fitness enhancement reagents and handed them to Sun Dehua and the others respectively. This is the first basic enhancement reagent I injected. You can try injecting it. But I have to remind you that this process is very painful. Hey, stop bluffing us, it's worth the pain to become stronger. Yes, sir, are you afraid of this? The 4 of them didn't take it seriously. After getting the enhancer, they injected it into their bodies one after another after sarcasm. Snort. Holy shit, does it feel so uncomfortable? Be good. However, you won't know until you try it. Once you try it, you will be shocked. As soon as the enhancer enters the body, the expressions of the 4 people suddenly changed. Knowing how powerful it was, the 4 people hurriedly put away their previous voyeurism, shut their mouths, and concentrated on resisting the pain of this transformation. Huh. Yeah, hold on. Bang. The 4 people collectively strengthened themselves. This scene seemed quite new to Wang Ling, so he simply sat down and watched the excitement. Different from strengthening Xiaohe yesterday, Wang Ling was too worried about Xiaohe at that time, but Wang Ling was not worried at all about these 4 pieces of materials. He even wanted to see them make a fool of themselves. Now he just had a box of popcorn in his hands. While watching, the 4 people were struggling to endure, and their postures were also different. Some were biting and groaning, some were forcibly admonishing themselves, and some even knelt down directly. In order to resist the transformation of this enhancer, they worked hard enough. Finally, after a period of strengthening, all 4 people were strengthened. They were sweating profusely and gasping for breath, as if they were still afraid of the transformation they had just undergone. However, after resting and noticing the surge of strength in their bodies, everyone smiled. At this time Wang Ling asked, how do you feel? Sun Dehua replied, the enhanced effect is indeed amazing. Even this process is too uncomfortable. He was not stupid. He knew how uncomfortable it was. Wang Ling smiled mockingly, "Do you still think it's unfair now?" Sun Dehu smiled awkwardly and was speechless, but Wang Ling said, "What, do you regret saying that?" "Don't worry, I said that there are two enhancements, just the basic one, and there is a more painful intermediate enhancement." As he spoke, Wang Ling had already redeemed 4 intermediate physical fitness enhancers and gave them to the 4 of them. Try. As Uncle Hay said at the time, in the later stages, the system points were just a number to Wang Ling. After fighting for so long, Wang Ling's points had already exceeded 100,000. He didn't even bother to ask more about the specific number. "Okay, I spent 40,000 points in one go to exchange for enhancers without batting an eyelid." After receiving the intermediate enhancer, Sun Dehu and the others trembled visibly. Erlu, a coward, even wanted to push it back, but under Wang Ling's threatening gaze, they could only accept it calmly. In the end, Gu Suanwei was decisive enough. "The team leader has already suffered, why don't we dare? The more we suffer, the more we will gain. Fight hard." After saying that, he directly injected the strengthening agent into his body. When others saw what he did, they no longer hesitated, gritted their teeth and started injecting. This intermediate enhancement is much more painful than the basic enhancement. They are as strong as Xiao He and Wang Ling. They all feel like they are collapsing when they are injected, not to mention the 4 of them. The pain of basic strengthening is so painful that they are scared. This intermediate strengthening is even worse than death for them. During the strengthening process, they cry for father and mother, scream in various ways, and even roll on the ground. It is really ugly. Frequent. However, although the intermediate enhancement is painful, the overall success rate of 80% is still quite high. These 4 people followed Wang Ling in the north and south, and it was not a problem to withstand the pain of this enhancement. In the end, they were tortured after being half dead. They completed intermediate strengthening.